And tonight's event is going to be live streamed on guitarworld.com. So welcome everybody out there in Guitar World land as well. So I've never met our guest until, I don't know, just a couple of minutes ago. But I feel like I've that I've known him, all my life. He's sort of a fellow traveler. His music's been with me for as long as I can remember. And, the songs dispense this sort of wisdom and, sort of assurance and, even political outrage at times. So it's a great pleasure here to have Graham Nash with us. We're here to talk about his, yes. We're here to talk about his new record, Over the Years. It's a really great retrospective. And it's got 15 of his most beloved songs, I would say. And this whole other disc with all these really cool demos on it that give you a sense of where these songs came from.
Right.
And I'll let him tell you guys a little bit about it. So, Graham, how did this whole thing start?
I realized a couple of months ago that there had never been one of those greatest hits of my music. And with all due respect, I wrote a lot of the singles of Crosby, Stills and Nash, starting with Marrakesh Express. But then, when I put the 15 songs together of fans' favorite songs of mine, I realized that probably a lot of people have already gotten that music, maybe several times, on the first Crosby, Stills and Nash and the Deja Vu and la 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 la. So how could I make this different and more interesting? So my friend Joel Bernstein, who's my fellow producer, and my lovely girlfriend Amy Grantham, we thought that we would put some demos on there. And there are 15 demos, and 12 of them you have never heard before. And the process of, especially for someone who loves music, the process of seeing an original idea put down on tape at 2 or 3 in the morning when you're blind drunk and you don't want to forget it, those are very interesting when you juxtapose those from the actual record that we made of those songs. And so far, the response has been wonderful. People are really liking, and obviously, they're liking the demo part of the CD better than the actual records, which I understand completely. But so far, that's how it did. And the cover is a beautiful picture that my girlfriend Amy Grantham made, a collage of this young boy looking through binoculars, looking at the future in a landscape. He's not looking backwards, he's looking forwards, and that's what I always do.
Was there a sense of rediscovery when you were going back through the demos? Did it bring back memories? I mean, is there?
I remember when I did every one of them. Yeah. And there's a certain naivety about them, particularly my song my demo of Teach Your Children, right? Yeah. Which I did in my apartment in London in either late '68 or early '69. I played it for Stephen, and he said, "That's a really lovely song. Don't ever play it like that again." And I said, "What?" He said, "Nah, you sound like Henry VIII. Here's how that should go." And he put that incredible Stephen Stills beautiful picking hand and left hand, and he turned it into a hit record, frankly.
Well, I was sort of wondering about that, like how it evolved from your demo version to, which is sort of a folk rock sort of thing, into a country song essentially. Was that sort of commentary as well on embracing more traditional values or meeting parents halfway?
Here's what happened, how I wrote Teach Your Children. I had a collection of photography that I sold at Sotheby's in the late 90s. And I had put together an exhibit at this university in California, and I've never told any gallery owner how to hang. I want to know what they think. They know their gallery way better than I'll ever know it. But when you put a photograph next to another photograph, they better have a nice conversation or else it's over. They had put an image that I bought by Dion Arbus, who is a brilliant New York photographer, of a boy in Central Park with a hand grenade. And next to it was an image I'd collected by Arnold Newman of Krupp. The Krupp family in Germany provided all the ammunition for World War I and World War II. And when I saw this kid with a hand grenade next to this portrait of Krupp, I began to realize that if we didn't teach our kids a better way of dealing with our fellow human beings, that humanity may be in danger here. That's what I wrote Teach Your Children about. And then I realized, of course, that not only can we teach our children good stuff, but we can learn from them. I mean, look what's going on in Parkland right now.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Those kids, and God bless them, and I hope they can keep up the energy. But we have a lot to learn from those kids. Mm-hmm. And that's the point of Teach Your Children.
I mean, it's an interesting song because it's a bridge between generations. Mm-hmm. And that was sort of rare for that time. Like, everybody was sort of like, you know, screw off the older generation. I mean, did you feel at that time that also as a young man that you felt like you needed to reach out to the older people too, or try to understand them?
Yeah, my parents taught me to follow my heart. I mean, that's why we are talking right now. I mean, if my mother and father had you know, pushed me away from music and get a real job down in the mine or at the mill, you know, do what your father did, what your grandfather did, they never let me fall for that. Mm-hmm. They encouraged my passion for music, and here we are talking all these years later, right?
Yes. So it struck me when I was thinking about that is, do you feel that that's part of your nature? I mean, you've worked with a lot of sort of extreme characters. Is that you're a guy that likes to bring people together? Is that an essential part of who you are?
I think so. I've always been a very curious boy. There's a story I tell, and it's quite interesting. I mean, it was interesting to me. I wrote my autobiography a couple of years ago.
Wild Tales.
And I did a book tour for it. And one of the stores was in Manchester, where I come from in the north of England. Mm-hmm. And I'm signing books. Oh yeah, to George. This kid comes up to me and he goes, "You need this." And I look in his hand, and he has an 8x10 manila envelope, right, obviously with something in it. And I said, "Yeah, why do I need this?" He said, "You need this. Don't open it until you get back to the hotel." So that was kind of weird, but I put it aside because people often give you CD and gifts and stuff, you know. So I put it aside, got back to the hotel, undid the envelope. It was my school report from when I was 11 years old. How this kid got this fucking piece of paper, I don't have a clue. But the reason that I really liked it was one of the very first comments of my teachers was this: "This boy wants to know everything." I was 11. I've never changed.
Hey, Gerard, do you guys want to hear a little bit of the demo for Teach Your Children? I think we've got just a smidge of it. Can you play it now? Okay, awesome.
Henry VIII.
You who are on the road must have a code you try to live by, and so become yourself, because the past is just a goodbye. Teach your children well, their parents help it slowly go by, and feed them on your dreams.
Nice, baby.
Thank you, thank you. One thing that was interesting to me about that is you have Jerry Garcia playing pedal steel. And he played pedal steel on a few of your songs. What is it about a Graham Nash song that made Jerry go for that?
Well, first of all, here's what happened. We were in the studio, in Wally Hyder's studio in San Francisco, and they had 4 studios there, A, B, C, and D. I don't know which one we were in, but in the next studio were the Grateful Dead recording, and in the studio above them were Jefferson Airplane. So we had cut the track of Teach Your Children. It didn't have a solo. And we were trying to figure out what it would be, and Stephen had done a lot of solos, and he didn't feel that it was right for him to play the solo. So Crosby says, hey, you know what? Garcia's next door. I hear he's been playing pedal steel. I said, really? Pedal steel? That sounds good, because, Stephen's right hand had turned it into this great country feel, right? So I thought pedal steel was a natural thing. I said, well, go and ask him. I said, first of all, you have to play him the song, because with great musicians, you don't want them to play on a shitty song. I mean, why, So I said, play Jerry the track that we have, and if he wants to do that, I'd love to hear pedal steel. They played it. Jerry loved it. He brought his pedal steel into the studio, and he played it immediately, right? So I said, wow, fantastic. And Jerry said to me, he said, you know what? I fucked up a couple of things there. Do you mind if I do another track? I said, absolutely, do another track, and I'll never use it. He said, why? I said, because for me, and it's my song, your first attempt, the freshness, the strange way it goes, that was perfect. So you've already done it. I mean, you can do another track, but I'm not going to use it. And he also played on Southbound Train.
Yeah, he did.
He played on I Used to Be a King with Joe Yankee on piano. Do you know who Joe Yankee is?
No, I don't.
Neil Young.
Oh. Always sneaky. So, I mean, did you, I was just curious as to, I mean, were you social with Jerry? I mean, what made that guy special?
There was something about Garcia. He was this combination of your favorite uncle and your favorite father and your favorite person that would tell you about life. He was a very interesting human being, and he had a heart as big as his guitars, I mean, the guy was really committed to try and make music in its purest form and to try and make the world a better place. Yeah. Jerry Garcia was really a fantastic human being, and his death was so sad. I mean, look how many people we've lost in the last few years,
Yeah. What was really interesting to me was also the early version of Marrakesh Express. We talked about it for a second. Gerard, could you just play a little bit of that for us too? And then we'll get into it.
This one's called the Marrakesh Express. Looking at the world through the sunset in your eyes, traveling the train through clear Moroccan skies. Ducks and pigs and chickens call, animal carpet wall to wall, American ladies 5 foot tall in blue, sweeping cobwebs from the edges of my mind. Had to get away to seek what we could find. Hope the days that lie ahead bring us back to where they've led. Listen not to what's been
Awesome.
said to you.
So there's a lot of complexity almost behind this song. There's big stories behind this. So first, can you tell us where and how it was recorded, the demo?
Yeah, I recorded that in my apartment in London, the same time I did Teach Your Children. Somewhere in the tape vaults at Abbey Road is a version of Marrakesh Express by the Hollies. And I hope you never, ever hear it. Because this was what happened. I'd written a song called King Midas in Reverse, and we made a pretty good record of it, But instead of getting into the top 5 like most of our singles did, and when I was with the Hollies, we had about 15 top 10 records, right? Yeah. So this only got to like 28, 30 maybe. From that moment on, they didn't trust my musical direction. Oh. And I thought the Hollies could have made a great record of Marrakesh Express. But they didn't like it. They didn't trust me. And so when I rehear the Hollies version, it's completely flat. It sucks, frankly. Yeah. So, you know, what can you do? When I played that same song for Crosby, he loved it. And he said, you know what? Those guys are crazy. Come over here. Come on. Let's go this way.
That was the start of a very different path that you could have.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, I'd already heard me and David and Stephen sing. Yeah. And that was life-changing for me. You know, we were in Joni's living room. David and Stephen had been trying to form a duet because, you know, David had been thrown out of the Byrds and the Springfield had broken up in March of that year. And David and Stephen were trying to do a duo thing. I had come from London to Los Angeles to spend some time with John. And when I got to the parking lot of the house in Laurel Canyon, I heard laughter and other people talking, and that pissed me off. You know, because I wanted to spend time with John. But it was David and Stephen. Mm-hmm. And after dinner, we'd smoked a giant joint. You know, we were higher than fuck. And David said, hey, Stephen, play Willie that song. And they did You Don't Have to Cry, which was on the first Crosby, Stills and Nash record. And they did it in 2-part, and it was beautiful. They got to the end of it. I said, Stephen, what an incredible song that is. That's fantastic. Do me a favor, do it again. So they sang it again, 2-part, Stephen playing guitar. They got to the end of the second performance, and I said, all right, bear with me. Do it one more time. And they did, and in the first 2 times they played it, I learned the words. I learned how Stephen was breathing. I knew what Crosby's body language was. When we got to the chorus, I added my 3rd harmony up there, and after 12 bars of the first time we ever sang 3-part together, we had to stop the song and start laughing because it was ridiculous. I mean, obviously the Hollies and the Byrds and the Springfield were pretty good harmony bands, but this was completely different. We had no clue that the 3 voices together making one voice got a blend that was very unique. And at that moment, I realized I would have to go back to England. I would have to leave the Hollies. I had to leave my family. I left my equipment. I left my money because, you know, I didn't want to be double taxed, you know. I played the last show with the Hollies on December the 8th in 1968, and on December the 10th, 2 days later, I was in Los Angeles with David and Stephen.
You've sung harmony with all sorts of incredible musicians, but can you explain to us a little bit about what it's really like when you blend or click with another voice? I mean, you keep on saying you and you know, I've heard the other guys talk about that something sort of magical happens. I mean, is it that rare?
It is rare, but let me give you another example of singing harmony. In 1992, CSN was playing a show in Toledo in Ohio. And we got there the day before, right? Because time changes, we all lived in Los Angeles. And the phone rang in my hotel room, which is unusual because I rarely answer the phone, and everybody on my crew know exactly where I am and what I'm doing. So the phone rings and I pick it up, and he goes, "Hey Graham, it's Phil." I said, "Phil, why?" This is Phil Everly, right? I said, "Phil, why are you calling me in Toledo, Ohio?" He said, "Well, you know where you're playing tomorrow?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, we're playing there tonight. Do you want to come to the show?" I'm fucking dying inside. It's been a lifelong dream for me. That's how I learned to sing high, right? So we're eating rubber chicken like everybody does at 5 o'clock in a rock and roll show, right? And Don looks at me and he goes, okay, what are you going to sing with us? And I'm trying to be cool, you know. I said, I like that song, So Sad. You know, dun, 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 right? I love that song. And he goes, in E, he had his guitar with him. I said, yeah, great, we'll do that. And Phil looks at me and he says, okay, I'll sing underneath Don. You can take my part. And I said, why? He said, I have the high part. I said, you know what, Phil, look who you're talking to. I learned to sing high because Don had the melody, you had the high part, and I had to sing on top of you. You stay exactly where you are, I will sing on top of you. I have a cassette, a board cassette, done from the front of the house, of me singing So Sad in 3-part with the Everly Brothers that kicks my ass today.
You know, on the record, it's really one thing that sort of jumps out is, you know, the political side of your. I mean, you've written these great pop songs.
Manafort's in jail.
But you've also written some fantastic politically aware songs. And the one thing that really jumped out at me was listening to Immigration Man. Can you tell us a little bit about how you wrote that and what you think about what's going on today and the relevance of Immigration Man?
CSNY had done a show, I've told this story a million times and I'm sure I'm boring the shit out of my partner here. But CSNY had done a show in Vancouver in British Columbia in the early 70s. And we got in the limousine from the hotel and we got to the airport and we got to the immigration desk. And they let Crosby in, and they let Stephen in, and they let Neil Young back into the country, which was amazing. But not me. Something wrong with my visa. You know, I had an H-1 visa, but, you know, this guy, this immigration man, whose name I have no idea, stopped me and would not let me go through. And it was pissing me off. I mean, there on the other side of this line were my friends laughing at me, you know. I was getting furious. And he gave me the runaround for about 25 minutes of trying to, you know, call the British embassy and all that kind of shit, pissing me off. I got on the plane, and by the time I got to my house in San Francisco, I'd already written Immigration Man. I wrote it on the back. I was reading a book by Ray Bradbury called Silver Locusts. It's a little paperback I was carrying around. And I have the words to this day, and it's all scribbled in the book out of complete fury. So that's the story of Immigration Man. And one of the things that is interesting to me is, you know, I wrote Chicago, I wrote Military Madness, I wrote Immigration Man, and I still sing them today because I feel the need to do it. And those songs were written 45 years ago, and they're still relevant today.
I think you need to do a special remix of Immigration Man, especially right now. So frustrating what's going on.
You know what? A friend of mine put a video together for Immigration Man that's pretty cool. Maybe I'll put it on YouTube.
Yes, definitely do that. That's a problem that needs a lot of attention. United States putting kids in cages, no, that's no good.
Hey, it's in the Bible. We can separate children from their things. Can you fucking imagine that? Seriously. And there was a guy talking to, you know, Mrs. Potato Head, who talks, you know, for the Trump or whatever her name is, Sarah, whatever her name is. And this reporter stood up and he said, "Hey, Sarah, you have 2 children. Do you have no empathy for what's going on here?" And she said, "No, it's the law." You know? And it's not the law. It's Trump's law.
This is a bad transition, but this is Guitar World. I have to ask this question. I want to ask this question. How did Dave Mason end up playing on that track?
Well, you know, I've known Dave a long time. We're both English, and we both were in the rock and roll stuff in the early 60s. And I saw what he did with Traffic, and, you know, I sang on a couple of Dave's records, Every Woman, a beautiful song of his that I sang on. And he was in San Francisco, and he was at my house, and I was about to start. And I got to the studio, and I picked up my acoustic guitar, started playing. He started playing, and my friend Joel Bernstein, who I think was only like 17 at the time, he was on the piano going, dun, 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 and that's cool. Why don't you just play piano? Yeah. Me? Play piano? And Dave Mason sat on the piano stool right next to him playing his solo, right? So that's why, I mean, you know, I have friends.
It's sort of super awesome because I don't think it really happens as much today that, you know, people at that time were spontaneously playing music together and recording ideas. And do you feel that that camaraderie exists today?
I don't know. I really don't know. I've been concentrating for the last 10 years on the archive that I've been keeping of Crosby, Stills and Nash and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. And about 10 years ago, Warner Brothers told us that they owned everything that we'd ever recorded. And I said, actually, that's not quite true. If you read the contract, it will say that you own every record that we delivered for you, that you paid for. God bless you, you paid us a lot of money. Those are your albums. However, when I recorded me and David in the kitchen in my house doing a song, you don't own that, right? And so they realized that, in fact, we don't. So then I went back into our archive, and I've been doing that for the last 10 years, finding gems and finding stuff that is unexplored.
Next year is the 50th anniversary of Woodstock, and I was curious. I've heard you guys talk a little bit about being there, but I've never really heard you guys go on about what the experience of that day was like. I mean, was it chaos? Was it a mess? Was it cool?
It was all of that stuff.
Yeah.
we flew into Woodstock on helicopters, and Crosby, quite rightly, described it as flying over an encampment of the Macedonian army, right? You know, so. And there were obviously hundreds of thousands of people there. It was all rainy and muddy, and we flew into there, I think, just after dark, you know, around 9 o'clock at night. And the first thing we had to do was find John Sebastian and find his tent and get high. And that's what we did. And we had a good time. Stephen said he was scared shitless, but I wasn't. Yeah. You know, so we have to do Guinevere with one acoustic guitar to 500,000 people. Who cares?
Were you guys able to hang out and watch other people play?
We watched people until Jimmy started. And then we had to leave because we had to do here's what happened. Joni was supposed to do the Dick Cavett show on the Monday. The Dick Cavett show in those times was probably one of the biggest television shows, and it was the first time she'd ever appeared on national television. Yeah. So that was Monday. We played Sunday last night. So Elliot and Geffen, who managed us and managed Joni, said, Joan, you can't go to Woodstock. You'll never get out of there, and you have to make the television show on the Monday. You can't blow this. We went through the Woodstock experience, and we got back to the hotel. Joan and I were in the suite, of course, because we were boyfriend and girlfriend, and there was a piano in there. And Joan was playing this song called Woodstock, right? And it was basically done, probably 90% of it done. And the fact that she pinned the very essence of what Woodstock was about, having never been there, was fantastic, right? So with three of us got our elbows on the piano, and Joni's playing the song. Joni's version was a little slower. It was more purple. You know, it was darker, you know. She got to the end of the song, and Stephen said, hey, Joan, can we have that song? And she said, of course, yeah. Of course you can have it. I just wrote it, right? Sure you can have it. And he said, can I change it? And she said, what do you mean, change my song? And he said, not any of the melody or the lyrics, but I think there's a great rock and roll record to be made of this song. And she gave us permission, and it's the genius of Stephen Stills that Woodstock exists.
Joni's got all those great chords. Did you have to ask her what the chords were?
Really, really.
Well, let's talk about another epic performance besides Woodstock, which is you guys playing on the Tom Jones Show, which is making the rounds on YouTube. But I can't figure out, like I'm looking at you and Crosby, and I can't figure out whether you guys are like going.
We hated it. We hated it. I mean, I love Tom. He's been a friend for years. He's Welsh, you know, right? We all existed at the same time, but we hated that because you can't swivel your hips to Long Time Gone. You just can't.
It sort of felt like him and Stills were getting into a bit of a pissing match on stage, too.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, it's funny. You've worked with some of the greatest guitar players in the history of rock music. I mean, you know, there's Stephen and Neil Young and David Crosby and probably many, many more that I'm not aware of. I'm sort of wondering, are you the kind of guy that like watches somebody play something and you steal it, or do you just ask them how to?
I'm not that good a musician. Nobody I know writes music. Nobody. Not Joan, not Neil, not Stephen, not David, not me, not James. Nobody I know writes music, right? We have to do what comes naturally. And I got to tell you, I'm 76 years old right now, and my life has gone by in a fucking flash. And, you know, it's very difficult to tell kids, you know, take care of yourself because pretty soon you'll be old. Yeah, we've got all our lives. Really? Okay. Your original question was? Excuse me?
That's cool. I'm just, let me put it in a more simple way in the sense that, like, you've worked with all these great guitar players. Do you ever ask them to show you stuff?
No. No.
Really? You wouldn't want to take advantage of that? I would be all over that.
I know, but you see, I was almost about to say I'm not a musician. But
no.
You know, wait. I'm not looking for strokes here.
Yeah.
I understand what I do. Mm-hmm. I'm not a great guitar player, and I'm not a great musician. I can write melodies and I can write lyrics on very simple songs. Quite frankly, I'm interested in getting your attention now. Right. I don't want to wait till the end of the second chorus before you know what the fuck I'm talking about, right? I want you now. Right. It's not easy to write simple songs, you know. It's very easy to write complicated songs. That's how I found, you know.
Yeah. Even that might be true. You do have a really interesting guitar collection, though.
I do. I have an amazing guitar collection.
Really, some great. I don't know whether you guys know this out there, but I know a couple of them. I know that you own one of Duane Allman's guitars that he used on Layla.
I do.
Do you ever just pull that out and
I played it at the Beacon Theatre once.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
I did. Only because that's where the Allman Brothers did, you know, 1 million shows a week there, you know. I have Duane's slide guitar. I have Phil Everly's acoustic guitar. I have Johnny Cash's first serious guitar, on which he signed it on the back with a nail. and then June, when she saw him do that, wrote on the top, "Love you." I have Waylon Jennings' guitar. I have, obviously, Stephen's guitars. I have a lot of interesting guitars.
Mm-hmm. What's your personal go-to, though? What is the one guitar that you can't do without?
Strangely enough, it's a new one. It's about 5 years ago, Martin Guitar, who make the greatest acoustic guitars in the world, honored me by making a Graham Nash model. And it's brilliant. It's exactly what I want. It sounds fantastic according to my guys out there that do the sound, and I'm very happy with that. The only thing is, though, And this is a really sad part of my life, but only personally. I can't find my black guitar that I wrote Teach Your Children in Marrakesh and Simple Man. I can't find that guitar. You know, when we did Looking Forward, when we all went to Neil's Ranch to record, you know, everybody has 1,000 guitars between us, and it just got waylaid somewhere. I just can't find it, and it's heartbreaking for me personally, only because it was my first real guitar. It cost £10. It was nothing, right? You know, but it was my guitar, you know.
Well, in addition to your guitar collection, you're also a photographer, and you collect photography. Just curious. I know you're rather serious about it. Are there connections between photography and playing music?
I can hear photographs. I can. If I see a landscape, let's say there's a very famous image called Moonrise over Hernandez by Ansel Adams, right? When I look in the dark areas, I can imagine cellos playing. I look up out in the clouds, I can imagine the violas and the violins. I can hear photography. It's all the same energy. It's me trying to express myself any way that I can.
Right. I always thought that, like, some of the best music is being played by being in the moment. And to me, that, like, being a photographer is sort of excellent practice for that, because to get that shot, you have to be really
You have to
right
be very courageous.
Yes.
I mean, Henry Cartier-Bresson put it best when he called it the decisive moment. Because when you press that trigger, you don't want to waste film, you know. It's an interesting art form. I love photography dearly. The beginnings of photography started in 1838 by a man in Paris called Daguerre. And he was the first one to do those very shiny pictures where you can see your own reflection, you know, really old. And one of the things I just got recently, my favorite dag, John Quincy Adams.
Wow. Nice.
1842.
Yeah. I was thinking about your songs and thinking about the you know, some of your greatest moments, and I was reading the excellent liner notes on the new record. And it seems like a lot of these songs, like Our House, you know, Teach Your Children, Immigration Man, were captured very quickly.
Yeah.
You know, I mean...
Our House took me less than an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Just the song Before I Go was faster than that.
Yeah. And I was sort of wondering about that.
But Cathedral took me 4 years. I'm not kidding. When you're talking about people's relationship to God, you better have every fucking word right.
Well, they always say cathedrals aren't built in a day anyway, so, you know. But I was wondering what you felt your strength was as a songwriter.
I want several things. I want to reflect the times in which I live, and I want to tell the truth as much as I dare. That's what I want to do. I'm a very simple man. I'm from the north of England, from a very poor family. I know that I've done interesting things in my life, but I'm the same as everybody here. You know, if anyone's a plumber out there, if I'd have been a plumber for 50 years, I'd be fucking great.
We're going to have the audience ask a few questions, but I want to ask you a couple more here. One of your most profound songs, at least for me, is a song, Wasted on the Way. I'm wondering, hey Gerard, could you play a little bit of that, the demo?
Wake up.
Look around. can see my life before me, running rings around the way it used to be. I am older now, I have more than what I wanted, but I wish that I had started long before I did. And there's so much time to make up everywhere you turn, time we have wasted on the way. So much water moving underneath the bridge, let the water come and carry us away. And there's so much time to make up everywhere you turn, time we have wasted on the way. So much water moving underneath the bridge, let the water come and carry us away.
That was recorded in Hawaii. David was not around. Stephen and I had started the Daylight Again record, and I kept calling Crosby every day to ask him to come over to Hawaii and help us complete the record. And Harper, who was Jan Dee, David's wife's mother, kept answering the phone. And I said, yeah, where's Cross? Let me talk to Cross. She said, well, you know, he's at the beach. Okay. Next day, is David there? I want to talk to David. I need to talk to him. Well, he's at the beach. Now, fucking Crosby's never been to the fucking beach. Come on, let's get real, right? So obviously he was non compos mente, as they say. And that demo is me and Stephen and Timothy B. Schmidt.
Oh, nice. Mm-hmm. So is Kraz still at the beach?
You have no idea how big the beach is in my mind.
When I was listening to it, I was thinking this. Do you still feel the sentiment of that song, or now that you're even a little older and have more perspective, do you see the patterns of?
Well, the first thing is I wrote I Am Older Now, and that was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? Who knew?
I mean, do you still feel the same way that
Yeah.
time has been wasted?
Absolutely. Here's what happens. You show me a brilliant song, I want more. You can't play me Sweet Judy Blue Eyes and not play me another song. Come on, I know there's stuff in there. Come on, let me hear it. I want it all. When I hear a great piece of music, I want more. And I'm selfish that way, but that's the way I am. And we because of our arguing and, you know, not being able to get on together, and we wasted a lot of time. CSNY wasted a lot of time. We could have been making more records than we ever did. But egos and drugs and management kept us apart. And that's why I wrote Wasted on the Way.
Right. So over the years, you guys should definitely check this great record out. You heard a little bit of these demos. It's beautiful. It's great to revisit those songs, and it is really cool to listen to those demos, because you know you hear these songs for years and you start taking them for granted a little bit.
Sure.
And I think when you listen to it in a new way, it gives you a new appreciation. So I'd like to take some questions from the audience.
You,
Laura's.
There's a gentleman with his hand up.
Yeah, I think Laura.
Oh,
Who has their hand up?
over here.
Okay.
First of all, you guys have been a huge part of
my life, my youth, my growing up. So it's an honor to be here. Are you still in touch with Joni? And if so, how is she? And if not, why not?
Obviously, I keep in touch with Joan. I saw her maybe about 4.5 months ago. When I was in Los Angeles, I went to dinner at her house. If you don't know the story, she had a brain aneurysm and was found after 3 days on her kitchen floor. She was in a coma. They gave her drugs at the hospital to bring her out of the coma, which put her into another coma. She got out of that. She went home. She was not walking. She couldn't talk. She has a team of people taking care of her that love her dearly. And the last time I saw her, she was walking and talking and as funny as ever, really. Joni's a very funny woman. But it's taking longer than we thought. Yeah. You know, it's been a couple of years now. But I sincerely feel that, you know, in a few months, Joni Mitchell will be back.
That would be a wonderful thing.
I'm coming over.
Hi. I don't know. I thought about a lot of questions here. And what I came up with was, during your musical career, do you have any regrets? And if so, what were they?
I only have 2 regrets in my life. I wasn't there when my mother died, and I wasn't there when my father died. The rest, my life's been a joke. It's been insane. You've got to understand, I never planned any of this. You know, those are the only regrets I have. Real deep regrets. You know. Thank you. You're welcome.
Your song you wrote, the sleep song?
Yes.
Here in the back. Who was in mind when you wrote that? That's one of the most beautiful love songs
My
I've ever
first
heard.
wife.
It's a beautiful, beautiful song.
Thank you. I still do it today. My first wife was Rosemary Eccles, and Alan Clark, who is my partner in the Hollies, his wife was Jennifer, and that's where you get Jennifer Eccles from. One of the worst records ever made. And I wrote it. With Alan and Tony, of course.
Sharing the blame a little bit.
I'm got to share the blame. Paul Manafort's in jail, yes! You know, I got to tell you something. This fucking administration is affecting my sex life. I'm not kidding. And I mean, you know, by the time you've listened to all the madness that goes on, and you watch Rachel, and then you watch, you know, who wants to fuck? I mean, seriously.
Trump seems to be fucking over enough people, so I guess he does.
We got one more question here.
Where are we now?
Hi.
Yes.
My very first concert was in 1973 in Milwaukee County Stadium, and it was with Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, Jesse Colin Young, and the Beach Boys. And it was the most memorable time of my life. I know you've done a lot of concerts. I'm wondering if you remember anything about that concert in Milwaukee way back? If not, that's okay. I always remember it.
Do you know how many drugs we took? In the press, Crosby calls that the Doom Tour, you know, but I never looked at it like that. I mean, we were going first class everywhere, you know, and after every concert that we played in giant stadiums to hundreds of thousands of people, we would go home and there'd be sushi for 20,000 people and lobster and all kinds of stuff. We had pillowcases that had Joni. Do you know Joni's drawing of us on the So Far record? Or that was embroidered on the pillowcases. We had wooden platters where it was stamped into the thing. We spent so much fucking money. It was awful. But yeah, I remember that tour. I had a great time on that tour myself. And I know that, you know, maybe David didn't, and Neil traveled by himself. He got a Winnebago and he took his family with him. But I have great memories of that tour. And it's one of the reasons why Bernstein and Stanley Johnson and I put together the CSNY 1974 CDs, you know, because I wanted to show America that regardless of the four individuals and what they write, we were a fine rock and roll band, you know, and this record proves it.
I always tell everybody this, the record that I really learned to play guitar to or with was Four-Way Street.
Oh, God.
Which is amazing guitar work on every level on that.
Yeah, it's Stephen and Neil, man. Southern Man. Are you kidding me? Me and Bill Halverson, our engineer, edited that and mixed that. Southern Man, what a great song, God.
So the record's called Over the Years. I'd like to thank you again. Oh, one more question. Are you working on any new music?
Of course. I'm a writer.
Yes.
How can I not be? Yeah, there's so much to write about, you know?
Yes.
But I have to say that the song that I've written right now, I wrote a beautiful song for my girlfriend Amy, and I played it for Michael. I can't play it for Amy. I mean, I can. I never get through it. The first time I tried to play her the song, I started crying, and she's never heard the complete song yet. Oh, no.
I'm just gonna let you stew in this for a minute. Well, thank you so much, Graham, for
You're very welcome.
all
And thank
all
you
the
all for
years
coming,
of
too.
great music and great conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. Take it easy. Take it easy.
Graham Nash, everyone. The record's called Over the Years.